Hello, I'm Farah Nasser, and this is the West Block. Politics, perspectives, and players. This week, we're asking Canada's foreign minister questions about what he knew as one of the Prime Minister's top cabinet ministers about the We charity ethics controversy. I asked him if he was personally involved with We. And I asked François-Philippe Champagne to respond to questions by Michael Kovrig's wife about the detention of the two Michaels in China. They've been in prison for almost 600 days now. You'll hear the minister talk about what pressure Canada is applying on Beijing and on the United States to see a resolution to this diplomatic crisis. But is it enough? Joining us now to talk all about that is Minister François-Philippe Champagne. He's Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister. And Minister, it is a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for making the time for us. I'd like to start with the We charity controversy. We now know that questions were posed around the Prime Minister's connections to We charity. You were obviously one of the more prominent voices around the cabinet table. Did you personally know of the connection?
Well, let me say that the Prime Minister, and thanks for having me, first of all. Let me say that the Prime Minister has been clear. A mistake was made. We need to course correct, as it's the normal thing to do in circumstances like that. I've been clear. I had no connection, whether directly or indirectly, with the We charity. But let's also remind for the people who are watching us that the spirit behind that was to provide opportunities this summer for students who wanted to volunteer. So yes, the process should have been better and will be better in the future. We have admitted that there was a mistakes made in the process, but let's not forget what we were trying to achieve, which was to help our youth this summer at a time of COVID.
I don't think anybody's disputing that, Minister, but were you personally satisfied that there was no conflict when this was brought up?
Well, like I said, the Prime Minister has spoken. I was not aware of the particular circumstances surrounding that. But what's more important for Canadians, those who are watching us, is to say, listen, clearly there's a mistake. And the Prime Minister has acknowledged it, has been clear. We made a mistake, and now there's a course correction. The systems, how can we prevent that from happening in the future? How can we make sure we provide opportunities for students this summer? And how, as a government, we learn from that? I mean, this is unprecedented time. A lot of things have been happening very quickly, but what things that is teaching from that, and one of the lessons learned, is we need to be extremely careful whenever we make decisions to uphold the highest standard that Canadians have the right to expect from their elected leaders.
Okay, and Minister, do you have any connections to the We charity?
No, I don't.
Okay. Let's move on to Russia, Minister. Canadian researchers developing a vaccine for COVID-19 have been targeted by Russian hackers, along with other countries. Now, you released a statement calling out, quote, irresponsible state behavior. What specifically is Canada doing beyond calling it out?
Well, first of all, we were deeply concerned, and I must say appalled, that in a time of COVID, that state and non-state actors would be trying to get in our network, try to disturb the research that's being done to find a COVID vaccine. It is really disturbing. And it's times like that where we say we need to strengthen our resolve to make sure that we are vigilant first. I've been aware of some companies which were subject of the targeting, making sure that we have processes in place, making sure we work with our security agencies and intelligence agencies to prevent and protect and respond to what's going on. We've been working with our allies in the UK, the United States, but first and foremost, I'm appalled that in a time like that, that state and non-state actors would like to disrupt in whatever form the research that's being done to find a COVID vaccine. And this is a good example of calling out Russia, in this case very specifically, of trying to disturb and target some of the research activities going on in Canada.
Minister, it's been almost 600 days since the two Michaels have been in jail. The Prime Minister has hinted at more measures against China. What else is Canada considering?
Well, you said it, and again, arbitrary detention has no place in the world, and certainly has no place in 2020. I have been dealing with this issue almost on a daily basis. Even earlier this week, I was in touch with Ambassador Barton. We almost talk every other day to make sure that we progress. I think we have said it, and we have talked to the family of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. I appreciate their call for more actions. I can assure you that with the international community, this is top of mind. Even in the Five Eyes call we had recently, arbitrary detention in the case of the Michaels was raised. I think we need to also look at towards Washington, because this all started there, and certainly we are working with American allies to try to see what more can be done, because again, this whole cases started with accusations that were laid in the United States, and certainly we are working with them to try to see how can we move in this situation, because you're quite right. This is 600 days coming soon, and 600 days too many. And more broadly, I've been talking to make sure that we're looking with our allies around the world about an international protocol to prevent, to the extent possible, arbitrary detention, talking with like-mindeds to make sure that this never, or at least that the threshold or whatever state who wants to engage in arbitrary detention would be facing consequences for the action.
Well, I mean, they're having tough calls, like sanctions against top Chinese officials, calls coming from former high-ranking government officials here. Are you considering that?
Well, I would say Canada has been leading the effort. I mean, we've been front and center from day one when it came to Hong Kong. I can say the measures that I've announced recently, which was first to suspend the extradition treaty, to stop the export of sensitive items to Hong Kong, and to update our travel advisory. You've seen some of our colleagues around the world are considering similar measures that Canada have been taking. The Prime Minister and I have been clear. We're also looking at immigration measure. So we are really looking with, I think Canadians understand that the best way to have a greater impact is to work with our allies, to work with the international community, to be complementary, to act in unity, and to call it for what it is, to stand up and speak up for the people of Hong Kong. There are very live discussions. Earlier this week, I was having exchange with the UK Foreign Secretary, last week with Secretary Pompeo. We are really coordinating our actions to make sure that we respond appropriately to the erosion of freedom and liberty in Hong Kong.
You spoke about the allies, but the UK has done something concrete, extended residency. Australia's made it easier for Hong Kong residents to stay there. So what concretely are we doing right now? I mean, these allies have acted. Why haven't we?
Well, I would say we've been at the forefront. If you look at, we were the first one to suspend the extradition treaty, and I know that our colleagues are looking at similar measures. We were the first one with the United States to say that we would stop the export of sensitive items to Hong Kong. And we have said even at the get-go that we would be looking at immigration measures to be complementary with what's going on. So, the suggestion that we're not leading is not grounded in facts, because we're actually leading, and some of our colleagues are looking. We're all comparing measures that we're taking with the same objective, which is to send a strong signal to China that the erosion of freedom of liberty that will force all of us to look at the ramifications and consequences it would have on existing arrangements between our different countries and Hong Kong.
Veena Najibullah, I know you're in contact with her, the wife of Michael Kovrig. She's rejected the idea that securing the freedom of the two Michaels will endanger other Canadians. I want to just quickly play a clip for you from her.
Because the idea that somehow if we do this and find a way to secure the freedom of Michael and Michael Spavor, that will endanger other Canadians in the future, then that essentially means we have to resign to the fact that Michael will have to languish in jail for an indefinite period of time. We cannot accept that. I don't believe those are our choices. I believe we can find a way forward, a way that is both principled and pragmatic, a way that is both smart and strategic.
Minister, it seems like China, is not backing down here. I mean, this is widely seen as an arbitrary detention. Is Beijing the one calling the shots?
Well, I would say what they've been doing, and like you said to the wife of Michael, we talk regularly. We are working together. I must say, every time that we have discussion is to try to look at strategic, like you say, to be smart. To be looking at what we can do together, what we can do in Washington, what Canada can do. and I greatly appreciate her involvement. She's been terrific to work with, and as you know, there's many Canadians who have chipped in with their thoughts. One thing that we need to make sure is that at the same time is to the first and foremost priority is to get the release, the immediate release of the two Michaels, but also to think more broadly as to what it means and what could be the consequences and how we're going to do that to protect other Canadians in the future. So we're very much aligned when it comes to that. And I would say what China has been doing on arbitrary detention, today in the world, it's not only two Canadians which are detained, but what the world is seeing is that there's two citizens of a liberal democracy which are arbitrarily detained. And I can assure you that is having a lot of attention around the world. You saw recently at the EU-China summit, the leaders discussed of the case of the Michael. This is not only now a Canadian issue, it has become a world issue. And I'm sure that China is taking notice that this is hurting themselves, that arbitrary detention is not the way to resolve conflict in 2020, and that we will be relentless and we will use every opportunity to advocate for the release and to get consular access in accordance with the Vienna Convention.
Yeah, that's exactly what the family's been asking for, this consular access, saying it can't come soon enough. I just want to understand, I mean, this whole Huawei, banning Huawei decision, I mean, Canada's now the lone holdout in this Five Eyes security alliance, as you mentioned. Is this really the only bargaining chip that we have left when it comes to the two Michaels?
I would not make any link with the two issues. One is to ensure the security of our network and our national security in general. I think Canadians want us to make the right decision, to be thoughtful in our analysis, to consult with the intelligence agency, to make sure we protect our system, our communication system for now and for decades to come. I would not make any link between the two. You know, you can never justify arbitrary detention. This is not the way to proceed. We are advocating, obviously, for the Michael now, but I can assure you, I have been very clear that I'm looking not only at the Michaels, but beyond to make sure that as the international community is watching what China is doing, that we have some form of protocols to say, how can we act together whenever this may occur again, and to deter any state actors from engaging in arbitrary detention. So there's really no link between the two. One is going to take the decision to protect the national security and the best interest of Canadians, and the other one is to continue to advocate for two Canadians which have been arbitrarily detained.
Okay, our Foreign Affairs Minister, François-Philippe Champagne, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.